Steven Callahan crossed 1,800 nautical miles of open Atlantic in a 6-foot inflatable raft, alone with no engine, no radio contact, and a daily water ration that rarely exceeded a pint. 76 days passed before anyone saw him. The question is not whether he endured hardship, any castaway does, but how he kept himself, his raft, and his navigation intact long enough for rescue to become possible. That answer sits inside the specific constraints he faced, the tools he managed to salvage, and the compounding logic of what happens when each problem he failed to solve would have ended all the others. Callahan was a naval architect and inventor. In 1981, he sailed from Newport, Rhode Island, aboard Napoleon Solo, a 21-foot sloop he had designed and built himself. He crossed to Bermuda alone, continued to England with a friend, then entered the mini transat race from Penzance to Antigua. Bad weather sank several boats in the fleet and damaged many others. Napoleon Solo was among them. Callahan dropped out of the race in Spain, made repairs, and continued south through Portugal, out to Madeira, and finally to the Canary Islands. On January 29, 1982, he departed El Hierro, the westernmost of the Canaries, still bound for Antigua. 7 days later, during a night storm, an unknown object holed the hull. Callahan suspected a whale. Water poured in. The boat had watertight compartments he had engineered into the design, so it did not sink immediately, but breaking seas overwhelmed the deck and made it impossible to remain aboard. Callahan launched a 6-man Avon inflatable raft, roughly 6 feet across, and stood off. He managed to return to the swamped sloop several times, diving below to retrieve a cushion, a sleeping bag, and an emergency kit. The kit contained some food, navigation charts, a short spear gun, flares, a torch, 3 solar stills, and a survival manual written by Dougal Robertson, himself an ocean survivor. Before dawn, a large breaking wave parted the raft's tether. Napoleon Solo disappeared. Callahan was alone, roughly 7 days out from the Canaries, somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. He drifted west with the south equatorial current and the trade winds. The raft carried no motor, no sail, and no meaningful way to steer. Callahan had an EPIRB, an emergency position indicating radio beacon, and multiple flares. Neither produced a rescue. Satellites did not monitor EPIRB signals at the time, and he was too far from shipping lanes and aircraft routes to be heard or seen. Over the following weeks, he spotted 9 ships, most of them in the 2 sea lanes the raft eventually crossed. None saw his flares. From the beginning, Callahan understood that rescue was unlikely, and that survival would depend on maintaining a routine and solving problems as they appeared, rather than waiting for someone to find him. The first critical problem was water. He had salvaged 3 solar stills, devices that use sunlight to evaporate seawater and condense the vapor into a small reservoir. Callahan cut one open to understand how it functioned, leaving him 2 working units. Together, those stills and whatever rainwater collection he could improvise produced just over a pint per day on average. That amount was enough to prevent death, but not enough to prevent constant thirst, and it left no margin for days when the stills underperformed or the rain didn't come. The second problem was food. The emergency kit contained limited rations. When those ran out, Callahan began spearing fish. He caught mahi-mahi and triggerfish with the short spear gun, and he collected flying fish that landed in the raft at night. Barnacles grew on the raft's underside. Birds landed nearby. He caught and ate both. An entire ecosystem formed around the raft over time and followed it across the ocean. Callahan's food supply depended entirely on that ecosystem remaining present, which meant the raft itself, the platform that attracted and held this floating community, had to remain intact. The raft was fragile. The fabric was punctured repeatedly, likely by fish spines or by the spear gun during fishing. Callahan had a repair kit, but patches required time and calm enough conditions to set. If the raft deflated completely before he could seal a hole, he would lose his buoyancy and his platform, and with it, the stills, the fishing base, any chance of being spotted, and the navigation reference he had been maintaining for weeks. Each puncture forced him to stop every other activity and focus on the raft until the repair held. That cycle repeated throughout the drift. Callahan also navigated. He had salvaged charts and knew his approximate position when Napoleon Solo sank. Using the sun and stars, he tracked his westward progress. He later reflected on how differently things might have gone if the raft had been capable of sailing. A beam reach, he calculated, could have reduced 1,800 miles to 450. Sailing downwind at a modest 2.5 knots would have cut the time from 76 days to 25. Both combined would have brought him to safety in 6 or 7 days. But the Avon raft had no sail, no keel, and no ability to do anything except drift with the current and wind. As weeks accumulated, Callahan's body deteriorated. He exercised daily to preserve muscle function, but chronic dehydration, calorie deficit, and continuous exposure to sun and salt water left measurable damage. Salt sores developed. His hands and feet swelled. He remained functional, but the margin between functional and incapacitated narrowed steadily as the days extended toward 2 months. Every repair, every fishing session, every water collection required a body that was progressively less capable of performing it. The narrowest point was not a single moment of crisis, but a sustained condition. A body weakening faster than the drift was ending, repairs multiplying, and water production always near the minimum threshold. Every day that passed without rescue was a day in which the systems keeping him alive had to keep working, despite having slightly less to work with. On day 76, fishermen near the island of Marie-Galante in the Caribbean spotted the raft and pulled Callahan aboard. He had drifted 1,800 nautical miles, roughly 3,300 kilometers, across the open Atlantic. His body weight had dropped significantly, and he required medical treatment for dehydration, malnutrition, and infection. He was alive and conscious. Callahan recounted the experience in Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea, published in 1986. The book remained on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 36 weeks. After his rescue, he channeled the experience into invention. He holds 3 U.S. patents: a drogue-like boat stability and directional control device, a folding rigid inflatable boat, and a folding rigid bottom boat. The first working model, called the Clam, was developed directly in response to the limitations of the Avon raft. Callahan designed it as a multifunction self-rescue dinghy, one that allows a sailor to sail towards safety rather than drift and wait. His own stated reflection was architectural, not motivational. Given a raft that could sail, he would have been afloat 6 or 7 days instead of 76. What this case demonstrates is something specific about duration as a survival constraint. Callahan did not face a single catastrophic decision, whether to amputate a limb or abandon a companion or take one irreversible gamble. He faced 76 consecutive days of small, repetitive, interconnected problems: water collection, raft repair, fish capture, navigation, infection management, physical preservation. Each problem had to be solved correctly, in sequence, without outside assistance. A failure in any single category would have compounded into the others. Losing the raft meant losing the stills, the fishing platform, the navigation reference, and any realistic chance of being seen. Running out of water meant losing the strength to repair the raft or spearfish. Losing the fish meant losing the calories needed to keep the stills functioning and the repairs made. The survival mechanism, as the evidence shows it, was not a single brilliant decision or an act of heroism. It was sustained problem prioritization across more than 2 months, maintaining a functional routine under conditions that allowed no rest and no margin for cascading failure. The raft drifted where the current took it. Callahan kept its systems running long enough for that drift to end somewhere inhabited. His most enduring response to the experience was to design a different raft, one that doesn't leave the outcome entirely to the current.